There are certain moments when a woman looks straight at you, smiles, tells you that everything is okay, and somehow you walk away from that conversation feeling like you overlooked something meaningful. Not because she was dishonest, but because you sensed an emotion she never actually expressed through words. Many men spend years trying to understand moments like these. They search for formulas, hidden signals, secret sentences, and perfect explanations. But the interesting thing is, the more they try to force certainty, the harder it becomes to recognize what was truly happening beneath the surface. If you have ever found yourself lying awake after a conversation like this, going over every word again and again, wondering why her energy changed so suddenly, you are not unusual. You are noticing something that many people silently experience but struggle to describe. And before we continue, if these conversations about relationships and female psychology help you understand yourself on a deeper level, consider subscribing. Not because you need endless advice, but because sometimes hearing the emotions you have always felt finally explained clearly can change the way you see everything. Because what many people call female nature is not really about being mysterious. It is about emotion, and emotions rarely follow a simple, predictable path. Imagine this scene. You are sitting across from her in a peaceful cafe. Nothing dramatic is happening. She laughs, asks about your day, takes a sip of her coffee. Everything appears completely normal. But then you casually mention another woman, not someone you are attracted to, just a co-worker you happen to talk about. For a brief moment, something shifts. Her smile remains the same, but her eyes tell a slightly different story. It is subtle, almost impossible to notice. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, it disappears. Many men experience moments like this, but they immediately push them away. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it means nothing. And sometimes that is true. Sometimes she is simply tired, distracted, or thinking about something else. But other times, that small change is not about jealousy at all. It is about emotional importance. People naturally respond when someone they care about suddenly feels a little less emotionally connected or available. This is not something only women experience. Men feel it too. The difference is that people often express those feelings in different ways. And this is where many misunderstandings begin, because people do not always reveal their emotions at the exact moment they feel them. Often, they first search for emotional safety. Can I say what I really feel? Will I seem too attached? Will I regret opening up? Or should I just act like everything is perfectly fine? These questions happen silently. Sometimes they happen so quietly that the person experiencing them does not even realize they are asking themselves these things. There is another important part that almost no one discusses. Many men believe attraction is created by saying the perfect words, giving the perfect compliment, sending the perfect message, or choosing the perfect moment. But some of the strongest emotional connections are created during moments that would appear completely ordinary to an outsider watching from a distance. A simple pause, a comfortable silence, a spontaneous smile, the way someone remembers a tiny detail weeks later, not because the detail itself was extraordinary, but because remembering it made that person feel noticed and valued. Everyone wants to feel understood before they want to feel impressed. It sounds simple, but when you really think about it, how rarely does genuine understanding actually happen? Most conversations become performances. People wait for their chance to speak. They prepare clever responses. They protect their image. Very few people simply pay attention. And when someone truly does notice you, it can create a feeling that is unexpectedly personal. Not necessarily romantic, not immediately, but safe. And that feeling is far more powerful than many people realize. Should I send another message? You tell yourself not to think too much about it, but deep down, you already are. What's fascinating is not the fact that you feel anxious. Almost everyone goes through moments like this when emotions and relationships are involved. What's more interesting is what happens after that feeling appears. Some men instantly send another text. Some choose to disappear and act distant the following day. Some try to convince themselves that they don't care. And then there are a few who notice the emotion rising inside them before allowing it to control their reaction. That small moment of awareness changes everything because emotions often become stronger when they are ignored, not because they are actually bigger, but because they are waiting to be recognized. Now look at the other side. Eventually she responds, "Sorry, today was extremely busy." Maybe that's true. Maybe it really was. Life becomes complicated. People have responsibilities and unexpected things happen, but your mind doesn't immediately feel calm. Why is that? Because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Human beings naturally try to complete unfinished information with explanations. When details are missing, the imagination starts creating possibilities. Sometimes this helps protect us, but sometimes it quietly builds fears around situations that were never actually there. Many women experience this as well. Someone takes longer than normal to reply. Their energy feels slightly different. A plan suddenly changes. Without realizing it, the mind begins creating an entire story from only 2 or 3 small details. The real issue is usually not the message itself. It is what the silence appears to represent. Silence has a unique ability to connect with our deepest insecurities and bring them to the surface. There is another belief that slowly harms relationships. Many men assume confidence means never appearing uncertain, never admitting nervousness, never showing disappointment, and always acting completely unaffected. But think about the people you have respected and trusted the most throughout your own life. Were they flawless? Most likely not. What made them valuable was their consistency. Those are 2 very different things. Confidence is not always something loud or obvious. Sometimes confidence is simply emotional stability. It is the ability to remain yourself, even when you are unsure about exactly where you stand. Interestingly, that calmness often feels more attractive than trying too hard to impress someone, because calmness communicates something deeper. It quietly says, "My value does not disappear just because one conversation feels different." That is not easy. In fact, it is much harder than pretending that nothing affects you. Now imagine another moment. You are walking together after having dinner. The conversation slowly becomes quieter. For almost a full minute, neither of you says anything. Years earlier, that silence would have made you uncomfortable. You would have immediately tried to fill the space, made a joke, asked another question, or done anything possible to keep the interaction moving. But now, you simply continue walking. She looks at you and smiles, not because you were constantly entertaining her, but because you seemed completely comfortable being yourself. People notice that quality much more than they usually admit. Emotional tension can be felt very easily. Emotional peace can also be felt. Neither one requires explanation or words. This does not mean every quiet moment creates attraction. Sometimes silence is simply silence. Sometimes someone's feelings change. Sometimes the timing between 2 people is simply not right. Relationships are complex. No single action or behavior can guarantee a certain outcome. But often, people naturally feel closer to those who make their emotional world feel lighter rather than those who make them feel responsible for someone else's emotions. That difference matters. Nobody wants to feel like they are responsible for maintaining another person's happiness every time they look at their phone. Yet many relationships slowly move into that pattern without either person noticing it happening. But even that is not the deepest misunderstanding, because underneath all these conversations, beneath delayed replies, unclear signals, and uncomfortable pauses, there is one hidden emotional question that often influences a woman's actions without her ever expressing it directly. And when you understand that question, her behavior can begin to appear completely different. There is a quiet question that often exists underneath everything else. You will rarely hear someone say it directly. It usually does not appear inside a text message. No one normally sits across from you and openly asks it. But if you have ever wondered why someone who once seemed deeply interested suddenly created distance, or why another woman slowly became closer without any dramatic moment happening, this question is often quietly present in the background. Can I feel relaxed around you and still feel emotionally connected? Not, are you perfect? Not, will you always know exactly what to say? Simply, can I truly be myself here? That sounds like a simple question, but it carries much more meaning than people realize. Because many individuals spend years trying to become more attractive, while silently forgetting how exhausting it becomes to constantly perform and pretend. Think about the beginning of almost every connection. Both people usually feel a little nervous. Both are trying to create a positive impression. You carefully choose your words. She does too. You find yourself laughing a little louder than you normally would. She holds her smile a little longer than she truly feels. None of that is fake. It is simply human nature. When we care about someone's opinion, we naturally become more conscious of ourselves. But eventually, something has to shift. The act of trying to impress starts to feel exhausting. Someone has to take the first breath and relax. And often, the person who creates emotional comfort is not the one with the funniest jokes, the most expensive clothes, or the most impressive achievements. It is the person who quietly gives the other individual permission to stop performing and simply be themselves. Maybe you have experienced this before without even noticing it. You are having a conversation late at night. Slowly, the topic moves away from work, away from hobbies, away from the normal questions people usually ask. Then she shares something small, something that is not dramatic. Maybe she admits that she has been questioning herself recently. Or maybe she reveals that she still carries guilt about something that happened many years ago. For a brief moment, she watches your expression after saying it. She is not only telling you a story, she is paying attention to what happens in the space between both of you. Do you immediately try to solve the problem? Do you judge her? Do you become uncomfortable and change the subject? Or do you simply remain there and listen? That reaction matters more than many men understand, because people remember the feeling they experienced when they revealed the parts of themselves they usually keep hidden. Not every woman opens up in this way. Not every relationship reaches this level of trust. But when it happens, it is usually not random. There is another idea that surprises many people. Sometimes what creates distance is not rejection. Sometimes it is pressure. The pressure to always respond the perfect way. The pressure to constantly provide reassurance. The pressure to never have a difficult day or show weakness. Imagine carrying that feeling every time your phone receives a notification. Over time, even a loving relationship can start to feel like another obligation. This does not mean that affection disappears. It means emotional space becomes necessary. Healthy connection is not about being together every single moment. It is about understanding that temporary distance does not automatically mean something is wrong. That can be a difficult lesson, especially for someone who has experienced emotional pain before. Because old wounds have a way of entering new relationships. A delayed response can suddenly feel familiar. A cancelled plan can remind you of someone from your past. Without realizing it, you begin responding to yesterday while living in today. Many people experience this, including women. It is one of the quiet ways our past continues to follow us into the present. And then there is confidence, not the type people display online, not the loud and attention-seeking version, the quieter kind, the kind that does not need to win every argument, does not panic over every misunderstanding, and does not constantly search for reassurance. That type of confidence feels different. It feels calm. And calmness is deeply attractive because it allows another person to lower their defenses as well. But this is where things become more complex. Sometimes a woman creates distance, not because you did something wrong, but because she is trying to understand her own emotions. People often assume that distance always means a lack of interest. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it does not. Sometimes someone simply needs space because the connection has started becoming real. And genuine feelings can feel frightening, especially for someone who has been hurt before. That is why making quick assumptions can be dangerous. Human emotions rarely have only one simple explanation. Still, there is one pattern that appears again and again. It is so subtle that many men completely overlook it. Yet once you recognize it, you start understanding why some relationships slowly become stronger, while others quietly disappear, even when both people truly cared. Okay, can create an opening that assumptions never could. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is believing they are responsible for repairing someone else's emotions. You are not. Support matters. Compassion matters. Being willing to listen matters. But every grown person carries their own emotional world, and ultimately that world belongs to them. When someone believes they have to constantly save or rescue the other person, love slowly starts turning into a responsibility. And responsibility alone rarely feels romantic for long. Healthy relationships are not created by two people rescuing one another every single day. They are created by two people choosing to walk alongside each other, especially during the difficult moments. There is a quiet power in that kind of connection, one that does not need to prove itself or demand attention. And then there is the fear that almost nobody openly admits. Not the fear of being rejected. That fear is discussed constantly. The deeper fear is something else. What if she truly sees who I am and decides that I am not enough? That fear can change the way someone speaks. It can change the way someone carries themselves. It can influence the choices they make. Sometimes it causes a man to become too eager to please. Sometimes it causes him to shut down emotionally and create distance. Sometimes it makes him walk away before the other person ever gets the opportunity to leave. Not because he does not care, but because caring begins to feel unsafe. And if you have ever reacted that way, you are definitely not the only one. The surprising truth is that many women quietly struggle with that exact same fear. They simply protect themselves in different ways. And when two people, both carrying hidden insecurities and unseen fears, begin trying to build love together, something incredibly fragile and meaningful begins to develop. Recognizing that delicate balance may be one of the most important understandings in any relationship. There comes a moment in almost every deep connection when neither person is asking, "Do they like me?" The question becomes softer, deeper, and much more difficult to answer. Can we continue choosing each other even after the excitement begins to change? Because excitement always changes. It has to. No emotion can remain at its strongest level forever. That is not a sign of failure. That is simply part of being human. The couples who appear deeply connected from the outside are usually not living in endless romance every single day. They are experiencing normal life together. Ordinary Tuesdays, missed messages, long days at work, small disagreements, shared habits and routines. And somehow, they still find small moments to remind each other, "I am happy that you are here." Those moments may never receive attention from the world, but they influence relationships more than the biggest romantic gestures ever could. Maybe that is the greatest misunderstanding behind the idea of female nature. It makes it seem like women are some impossible mystery. Subscribe my YouTube channel.